In today's episode, we're getting up to date on the Felix for Fall knit-along that launches tomorrow, October 1st. I'm sharing with you 2 sock whips that I've been feverishly working on, and I'm also sharing with you a new cast-on, which is called the Versal Sweater by Albiana McLaughlin. So grab your knitting, a cup of something cozy, and let's get started. Hello, and welcome to episode 59 of the Wool Needles Hands Knitting Podcast. My name is Taylor, and I will be your host. This is a podcast primarily about knitting, though we do get up to other fiber-related topics and crafty creative topics from time to time. I'm coming to you from Henderson, Nevada, which is a small town outside of Las Vegas, Nevada, here in the Southwest United States. This is where I'm from and where I live with my husband Brandon, our 4-year-old son Ronan, our 7-year-old son Angus, our dog Pepper, who is napping right down here at my feet, and our cat Oscar. If this is your first time checking out the podcast, welcome, and if you are a returning viewer or subscriber, welcome back. Please be sure, if you like what you see here and if you have a good time, give the video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon so you can be notified anytime I upload new content here on the channel, which is currently twice a week, with podcast episodes now being uploaded on Saturday. It was Sunday before, but I kind of think I like Saturday a little bit better. And then we also have a midweek ramble being uploaded every Wednesday. All right, before I share with you what I have going on in my cup, I want to just get the admin-y stuff out of the way. We are launching the Felix for Fall knit-along, which starts tomorrow, October 1st. Hi guys, so this is Taylor from the future, just stopping by to tell you that the Felix for Fall knit-along actually kicks off today, October 1st. I was filming this on I don't know, I must have thought that the next day was October 1st. I was off by a day. So the Felix for Fall knit-along kicks off today. So happy kickoff day. I hope you guys have a lot of fun casting onto your Felixes or picking up your whips. I will be doing that today as well. So yeah, happy Felix for Fall knit-along kickoff day. The Felix for Fall knit-along is all about knitting Felix, either Felix cardigans or Felix pullovers. You can learn all about this in the video that I link to up here in the doobly-doo, and I will also link to it over on the Ravelry page for the channel, which I highly recommend you check out if you would like to know more about this knit-along. I'm so excited to get started with this because my Felix has been burning a hole in my basket over there ready to get knitted on, and I haven't touched it since we announced this knit-along, so I'm super excited about that. Okay, second note for admin, Fiber for the People, my hand-dyed yarn business. I am having a shop update on October 8th, Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Don't forget, if you would like to visit the shop and shop the update, Wool Needles Hands viewers get 10% off with the code WNH. I'm going to have 4 colorways in the shop on a variety of bases. It's going to be beautiful, so I totally hope that you can make it. Okay, last but not least, I have developed a merch store for the channel, for the Wool Needles Hands kind of corner of the interwebs. I have a shop that is linked down below in the description box. There's some really cute stuff over there. If you are familiar with the Whatever Speckles Your Yarn t-shirts that I launched about 2.5 years ago through Fiber for the People, those can be found in this merch shop with the Fiber for the People branding, because that is a part of my contribution to the knitosphere, I guess you could say. But all of that cute stuff is in the merch shop. So if you would like to help support the channel, that is a fantastic way to do it. Head over to the merch shop, pick yourself up a cute t-shirt or coffee mug or a tote bag, something like that, and the proceeds from those purchases go to help me continue to produce content for this channel. Check it out, there's some really cute stuff over there, and thank you muchly in advance. Okay, that's it for admin-y stuff. Let's go ahead and chat about what I have in my mug, and actually, more specifically, let's talk about my mug, because I took a little side trip the other day on my lunch break, if you will, to Anthropologie. Very rarely do I ever go to Anthropologie looking for something to purchase. It's just because I like to browse, and it's such a lovely shop and so many fun things to look at. It's just a fun time to go browse, and that's why I was there. I was stopping by this particular area to get an iced tea, and I decided to just go in there and see what they had. And I found the most beautiful coffee mug. It's monogrammed. Well, it's not monogrammed. It just has my initial on it, the letter T for Taylor. But I love this. I love this really pretty like paisley design with the blue background. I love the coppery kind of colors that are in there, those rusts. That color combination to me, like rust and this cobalt blue color, is so beautiful. And then the way that the letter, the color of the letter, that mustardy kind of color there. It's just so lovely. And the inside of the mug is like a speckled, I don't know if you could see that. We'll see if you can see the inside, but it's speckly inside there. And then the handle has this really nice place for your thumb. I think it's great. So that is an acquisition from Anthropology, a new coffee mug that I'm loving. In my mug, I'm having some organic chamomile from Taylors of Harrogate tea. It's one of my favorite tea brands. I put these in my orders all the time. I think it's because it says Taylors and my name is Taylor, but it's spelled differently. My name is Tayler, and this is of course O-R. Yeah, but that is what I have going on in my mug, and it's lovely, and it's just what I need. I am burning my candle again today because I felt like it was so cozy last time, but I'm a little concerned it's gonna get kind of warm. I have some things I wanna share with you guys today, and I don't wanna delay, so let's get right into it. Okay, the first thing that I wanna share with you guys are a couple of sock whips. Now, if you watched my last video, my midweek ramble from this last Wednesday, I did a sock roundup. So I found all of my little sock works in progress and I did a roundup and I shared them with you. And in doing that, it made me realize that I have so much work to do and that I can't possibly be casting on anything new. And I don't think either of what I'm about to show you counts as a new cast on because, well, no, I mean, okay, it doesn't. One of these definitely doesn't, and the other one I just don't think does either. And that's why it's totally okay that it actually was just cast on like last night. Okay, the first of the sock whips that I'm sharing today is my self-striping yarn vanilla sock. So here is my first of the self-striping yarn vanilla socks. This is in Nomadic yarns. And somebody left a comment on one of my videos that she's like a super fan of Nomadic yarns and she knew that this was called Honey Bear. And she's good because I think she's right. I couldn't remember for the life of me what this colorway was, but I went back to look at Ashley's or Nomadic Yarns Instagram, and I believe this is Honey Bear. I'm not sure. I didn't see any of it in the shop. There were so many other beautiful things, but I didn't see Honey Bear in the shop, but that's what I'm thinking this is. So I now, for the longest time, only had that one sock and I hadn't cast on to the second one, which is crazy, but now I have. And I mentioned in my sock roundup that I wasn't entirely sure what size needle I was knitting this on. And so I started by casting on a 0. And then I got like about to this pink stripe here and I was thinking, I don't know, I feel like that's too tight. So I changed it to a 1. And then I was like, no, I think that's too loose. And then I changed it back to a 0 again. I was having like a Goldilocks moment with the needles. And then I started knitting the like leg of the sock in the 1 or in the 0. And then I was thinking, no, like that's much too tight, or not too tight, but the stitches are too small. It must be a 1. So I went back to a 1, like around here. And then I counted, I like actually measured. Why wouldn't I have done that sooner? But I actually measured and then I compared it. And then I realized that it was a 0. The doubt, the seeds of doubt. You know what? It's just going to be a 0 because it honestly, now that I'm like comparing the two of them together, I mean, here, okay. I don't know how you're really going to be able to know. I'll know in the fit, but honestly, like if you look at the cuff, if I stretch the cuff here to about the same, what am I even trying to, you know what, forget it. It's going to be a 0. It's fine. That's just, I'm over it because I really do like the stitch definition. This is the progress I've made on my second self-striping sock. If it ends up being a little bit more snug, I have a couple different sizes of sock blockers like this. I'll just block it on a bigger sock blocker and call it a day. This sock has never been blocked, so yeah, so there's that. I don't know. I'm really thinking that it's fine, that it's on a 0, because the way that the fabric looks and the way that the stitches are, oh, I don't know, you guys know I'm starting to doubt. Does it matter? I mean, I know it matters. Oh my gosh. Okay, anyway, I've made good progress. I feel like if I decide now to go and change to a 1, it can't possibly matter all that much. Okay, I'm not even gonna worry about it. I'm just gonna keep going because I do like the way that these look. I feel like the fabric looks really nice. It almost, I almost feel kind of like moving forward, unless it's a pattern that calls for a particular needle size. I kind of like a size 0 for my vanilla socks. And I had mentioned in that sock roundup that I just couldn't see myself knitting a whole sock on a size 0, and I don't even notice it being that much slower to be honest. I kind of like the rhythm, and I really do like the fabric. So whatever. Okay, the next sock that I have living in my project bag, the same project bag that my stripy socks are living in, is a fresh cast on of the Wildflowers and Honeycomb sock pattern that I shared with you in my sock roundup. But when I was knitting it before, I was knitting it with this reddish orange sport weight yarn that I dyed myself way back in 2017. And it wasn't working out. It was just knitting to a gauge that was too large. I think it was just like one of those impulsive cast-ons, and I didn't really think much about size, which I don't know why. I'm kind of like shaking my head as to why I cast it on with that yarn, because the pattern clearly calls for a fingering weight yarn, but I did, so whatever. But I decided to rip that out. I'm moving my progress keeper just a smidge here. I decided to rip that out and do something else with that yarn, but to cast that project on again in a fingering weight yarn that I had in my stash. So I feel like that doesn't really qualify as a new cast on, because it's just, I don't have any more cast on socks than I did when I shared my roundup with you. It's just that I'm replacing one for the other, right? Like it counts, or it doesn't count, or it's fine. It's totally fine. So this is the Wildflowers and Honeycomb socks by This Handmade Life. And I'm not sure what the designer's actual name is, but this is what I have so far. So prior to knitting these with this yarn, I had probably 2 repeats of this cute little lace pattern, this little eyelet pattern. But this is where I'm at this point. And I love this. I love the cute little lace work. It's so simple, but yet it adds such a nice fancy detail to the leg of the sock. I can't wait to see more of it kind of come together. I'm pretty happy with the cuff. I decided to just stick to the pattern. The pattern calls for, well, it gives you 2 different options for a cuff. You could do a knit 3 through the back loop, purl 1, rib if you wanted to, or you could do this, which is a reverse, a twisted rib. So it's knit 1 through the back loop, purl 1, all the way around. I decided to stick with the pattern, despite the fact that I typically would have chosen to just do a knit 2, purl 2. That's my ribbing of choice when I'm doing something on a small circumference, like cuffs on a sleeve or a sock. But I decided just not to deviate from the pattern, just stick with it, and I'm okay with it. It definitely kind of confirms why I don't typically like 1x1 ribs for things like this. It just doesn't look as like pulled together as a 2x2. I'll see if I can't demonstrate what I mean here, but I feel like these cuffs just look more pulled together. It just looks more set. Like there's not a lot of wonkiness happening with the fabric. It's just set. The 2x2 kind of keeps everything organized, in my opinion. Whereas when you have a 1x1, things kind of move around more. You've got more like going stuff like this happening. I don't know. It's just a little more on the wonky side. But once a sock is on your leg, it doesn't really matter, honestly. And so I'm fine. Totally fine with it. I love the sock. I love the little design on the leg, and I really love this yarn. So this is Fiber for the People yarn in a Lucky Strike colorway. So if you're familiar with Fiber for the People, you're most likely familiar with my Lucky Strike colorways. However, if you're not familiar with Fiber for the People, Lucky Strike colorways are simply colorways that are created using remnant dye materials. So when I rinse off my utensils, when I wipe a spill off of the table of dye that might have like dropped onto the table, things like that, I catch all of that water and all of that residual dye in a pot, and I use that pot to dye more yarn as a way to kind of conserve dye. And also it conserves water as well, because a lot of times what I will do is use exhausted dye water to create those dye stocks from that residual dye. So it's like a waste not, want not approach to creating really unique one-of-a-kind colors, and just, you know, being conscious about those kinds of things in my dye studio. So they're always one of a kind, very unique. Most of the time they're tonal, and sometimes I get creative and I mix things together and I start like pouring one of the Lucky Strike dye stocks with another, and it, you know, they become a little bit more variegated. This one was just a straight tonal in this really lovely clay, kind of olivey clay color. I love it. So earthy, warm, and toasty. And it's on a merino nylon 4-ply, 75/25, super wash. But I really love it. perfect, I believe, perfect for this little sock pattern. And I don't know if I've ever mentioned this. No, actually, no, yes. This is my first patterned sock outside of one that I designed myself called the cocktail socks, which are super cute little shorties with a little kind of lacy design on them. Outside of those, this is the first design of someone else's that I've done for socks, or that I've knit for socks. And it's kind of cool. Usually I just knit vanilla socks, or I've done the Sunday socks by Petit knit, but those are just like a 2x2 rib. I don't feel like that counts. So this is like the first like patterned sock leg type pattern that I've knit. So I love it. I kind of feel like I'm a grown-up sock knitter now, because it's more than just a vanilla sock or a ribbed sock, if you will. But yeah, so that is I always forget if it's Honeycomb. Yeah, Wildflowers and Honeycomb socks by This Handmade Life. Super duper cute. And I'm knitting these on a size 1, these Chiaogus. Even though, kind of looking at it now, I almost feel like maybe I would have liked it on a size 0, but I'm going to go ahead and finish out the pair on a size 1, and then maybe moving forward, size 0 will be my needle of choice when I am doing my socks. Oh, I had a question, a question was asked of me in the last video of my sock roundup, what cast on I use when I knit socks to make sure I get, a stretchy cuff. And I want to start by saying that my sock knitting journey is I'm not a prolific sock knitter. I've knit a few pairs of socks in my time, but I just do a long tail cast on. I do a long tail cast on for almost everything if I can get away with it. I just always remember, I don't remember cast on loosely, but what I remember is that when I'm doing the long tail cast on and you go to kind of snug your stitches up on your needle, I want you to imagine for a moment in front of you that you're holding your needle in your hand and you're doing your long tail cast on. As you wrap your needle around and start to snug the stitch up onto your needle, a lot of people have the tendency to really snug it up, kind of like you're tying a knot around like a tree, okay? You want to tie it tight. You don't want to do that. You want to snug up and, get your tension just so that the bottom of the stitch as it approaches the needle just kisses the needle. If that isn't the cheesiest thing you've ever heard. You want to just snug it up so that the bottom of the stitch, which is approaching the bottom of the needle, just taps the needle. As soon as that yarn from the bottom of the stitch comes into contact with the needle, you stop. Don't tighten it. You want your stitches to really be able to kind of slide up and down your needle pretty easily, like very swiftly. You don't want there to be gaps, like you don't want air to be getting through. You don't want to be able to see through your stitches as they're hanging on your needle, but you want to make sure that the yarn is just ever so gently hugging your needle. So that's something. Now, that was something I was told years ago when I first started kind of getting into like knitting seriously and finding that I was having issues with my tension when I was casting on. It was at this knit shop here in town, it's not here anymore, called Woolly Wonders. A lady mentioned that to me. She's like, you just want to make sure the yarn kisses the needle. Nothing more than that. Nothing more, nothing less. Just so. And I got it into my head, and so every time I would cast on, I would make a concerted effort to do that, and now it's just part of my muscle memory. It's almost like I can do it without even thinking about it, and they're all just right there, sliding up and down the needle as you like. So that's my advice. If you're finding that you're having a hard time casting on loose enough, is just keep that in mind. Unless, of course, you want to use like a German twisted cast on or something like that Jenny's or whatever that stretchy cast on. There's like a bind off and a cast on that's like stretchy. I typically don't like to use those because I feel like they look too stretchy and can tend to look like messy. So I just keep in mind that little thing that I mentioned, and it seems to work for me because I haven't had many issues. So now you know. Okay, my last work in progress that I'm going to share with you guys today is one that I mentioned in the last episode of the podcast. However, I only mentioned it as like pattern or project forecasting. I shared with you my Newton yarn and my Biches Mohair yarn, which is what I have right back here. And I can bring this over because it's not currently attached to the project as of this moment, and I'll explain all that. It's like a whole harrowing tale. But this is my Newton by, you know what, I can't pronounce the company name, but this is what we know as Newtonen yarn. It's unspun pencil roving yarn. It's 100% Swedish lamb's wool or sheep's wool. It's beautiful. So this is, excuse me, mine. And this is my Mohair from Biches, and it's lovely. It's this beautiful kind of aubergine color, or eggplant. My husband gives me a hard time when I say aubergine. He doesn't give me a hard time. He just kind of teases me because it's not a very, it's not the color that Americans refer to when they see this color. We just say eggplant. But an eggplant and an aubergine are the same thing. Those of you that are in the UK, you say aubergine. And then we here in the United States, we say eggplant. But then in the United States, we also refer to this color as aubergine. And so, yeah, it's just a thing. Whatever, who cares? I like to say aubergine because I just feel like that's what that color is. It's aubergine. Or eggplant, if you will. But that is what I have. So this is what I was showing you guys on the last episode of the podcast and how I was going to pair all of these together to knit a Versal sweater by... So you feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but the Versal sweater by Albiona McLaughlin, and I actually cast it onto it. So when I talked to you guys last time about it, it was just project forecasting, but I have actually cast it on, and holy moly, I'm gonna get rid of this sock blocker here. It has been quite an experience, and this has nothing to do with the pattern. This has all to do with the knitter. Now, I don't know what it is, but short row shaping on the neck is genius because it seems to me to be just like a really kind of, intuitive way to adjust the length of the back of the sweater. So that the back sits higher up on your neck than the front, and it kind of just makes up for the fact that we have like a roundedness to our front or to our back, the round of our back. We have to increase the length on our back, whatever. So I love that. That is something that we can do quite simply. However, it always seems to slip me up because I've missed something, or I knit through a wrap and turn or something, and I knit through a short row and I went too far. These kinds of things happen to me, and I think it's just because you become distracted by things going on around you. But with my Felix pullover that's waiting to be worked on until the launch of the knit along, it was the same thing with that, and I've knit that 3 other times before. I can't remember if I dealt with that on each of those instances. I just know it's something that I deal with sometimes. It just throws me for a loop. This was one of those. It was some silly mistake that I made because I read some wording in such a way that I thought that it meant to do this one thing, which would have increased my stitch numbers. All I know is that the way that they described repeating the series of short rows made it sound like you needed to repeat them to the extent that you would have 8 more stitches than what it actually wanted you to have. That's as far as I'll go with that. It was just one of those things. I just read it wrong. I did the thing that I thought I was supposed to do, and then I realized I had way more sleeve stitches than I was supposed to have, and so I had to go back. And the harrowing portion of the tail is when you are knitting back with this yarn. Knitting back sucks altogether. Honestly, I don't like doing it unless it's a sock or it's something or it's maybe within 1 row you gotta go back and fix something, or even 2 rows you go back and fix something. When you have to knit back several short rows back and forth, and I know you could also just pull your needles out and throw in a lifeline, pull your needles out and rip back. But here's the thing, this yarn is so delicate that you have to be so careful how you pull at it. And it's much more delicate when you're holding just a single strand of it. Fortunately here I have 2 strands of it plus a strand of mohair, so there is a little bit of that there to keep it together. But regardless, another thing that happens is that while you're working with this yarn and your hands are running across the stitches, you're gently felting it, which is ideal. That's kind of what makes this lovely, is that as you're working with it, you're kind of rubbing the stitches into place. You're getting everything set. You're giving a little bit of you're fulling it just a little bit to kind of bind things together. Not enough to make it look felted, but just enough to cause the little fibers to stick together so everything is in place. I think it's the beauty of working with yarn like this, especially when you're holding it double or holding it with other strands of yarn. However, if you have to go back, let's say I did put in a lifeline and I wanted to rip back. It's so hard to rip back because you're gonna have fibers stuck together. You're gonna have to tear, you have to do that thing where you kind of tear it a little bit just so that you can keep pulling it out. It's so time consuming. And I had to go back pretty far. It was so frustrating because I just felt like I just need to get past these short rows. It's just these two little sections of short row shaping and you just need to get past them and then you're off to the races. But one thing I can tell you is that I can tell that I'm extra motivated to knit this sweater because there wasn't even a part of me that was like, you know what, I'm just gonna put this down. I'm not gonna deal with this now. I'll come back to this at some other time. Like I was dedicated to figuring it out, to just doing the thing and knitting back and fixing my mistake. And that lets me know that this is a keeper. So that's good news. I have made it through. I have seen the light. I am on the other side of that dark tunnel, and I'm now just working my way around the yoke, increasing for the sleeves at the moment. And I'm really loving this so far. So I'm going to show you how it's knitting up color-wise, and then I'll give you some little notes, things that I had to kind of tweak a little bit. So again, this is not very much, but this is what I have so far. It's going to have a really lovely saddle shoulder construction. Yeah, it's lovely. And I love the color. You can see that really warm eggplant coming through that brown, that natural brown color. Ugh, it's so beautiful. It's like, it's not brown, it's not purple, but is it purple? Is it brown? Is it gray? Because there's those little white fibers in there as well. I don't know, it's really cool. Like every time I look at it and in different lighting, something new comes out of it. But yeah, so I really love this. I mean, look at that beautiful color. There, you can see the saddle shoulder happening right here. I really do like the way it's looking so far. I haven't made much progress, but I think I'm gonna really like that saddle shoulder design element. I've never knit a sweater with that before. So it'll be something different. All right, guys, that is all I have to share with you today. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me here and listen to me chat about all these knits. It's always so lovely to take this time out of the day to chat with you guys. And also, I love reading all of the comments down in the comment section. I read every single one. I try my darndest to get back to each and every one of you in some shape or form because I love having these conversations with you guys. You have such cool insight, interesting kind of takes on different things that I talk about here. I really love to read them because that's how I do, that's kind of like my give and take. What you put in the comment section is my way of communicating with you guys directly about the content that I share here. So I really love that. So please leave me some comments down there. Let's chat. It's always a lot of fun. You guys always make me smile, so thank you. If you enjoyed yourself, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. It helps more than you know. Also subscribe and click the bell icon so you can be notified every time I upload something new on the channel. Until next time, guys, on Wednesday's Midweek Ramble, happy knitting, happy making, happy whatever it is that you're doing. Take care, and I will see you soon. Bye.